My guest today on Hard Talk is the renowned British plastic surgeon Dr Mohammad Jawad, who helps reconstruct the faces of women disfigured by acid attacks. He featured in an Oscar-winning documentary about his humanitarian work in his native Pakistan. His high public profile has helped raise awareness about the life-destroying nature of acid attacks in Pakistan and elsewhere in Asia. But has it brought about real change and action to help bring down the level of such violence against women? Dr Mohammad Jawad, welcome to Hard Talk.
Thank you very much for having me.
Now, you think of plastic surgery and you think of cosmetic surgery. Does the glamour end of your business worry you?
It's a misnomer. Cosmetic is a part of the plastic surgery, and in our training, it's a reconstructive part which actually leads into the cosmetic or aesthetic part as well. So, in training, we go through all phases of plastic and reconstructive training, which includes aesthetic part. And some people carry on doing the aesthetic or cosmetic part in their career, but it's all the same process.
You said in February last year, I want to restore the glory of plastic surgeons' boob jobs, that is, breast jobs, you know, augmentation or reduction. Boob jobs, you said, have overshadowed our work restoring patients, their limbs or breasts from cancer, for instance. Sounds like you are a bit worried.
Well, I must admit, I think what we had been doing, and plastic surgery developed and evolved during wartime injuries, and burns reconstruction, the damage on and the places I trained at, like East Grinstead and Queen Victoria Hospital, which has a huge history of last 60 years of reconstruction of these Air Force pilots who were there for many, many years in a multiple stage reconstruction. So it started with the burns, injuries in terms of war injuries and deformities, to reconstruct and rehabilitate these people to become productive members of the societies. And over a period of time, we learn more about different flaps, we learn.
Sure, but I mean, the question is this to you, that how comfortable do you feel about the two ends of your work? We understand, of course, that you do very important reconstructive work and helping burns victims and so on, yet you do carry out operations on healthy people simply for cosmetic reasons. You know, we tend to think of doctors wanting to make people better and not just doing it for vanity reasons. So it's just a simple question, really. How do you feel about that end of your
I feel
work?
comfortable in both hands, because this is both complementary. But none of these are contradictory to each other. Now, this person who is relatively not so happy in terms of a reconstruction, you restore that. And somebody who's looking for a cosmetic, also not happy for that reason, and we restored that part of the body which bothers this person.
So you see no contradiction, but do you feel, however, Dr Jawad, that there's a paradox, for instance, between the fact that you do perform operations to augment some women's breasts, and yet you also deal with women who are the victims of acid attacks, and that is often as a result of some kind of sexual harassment, if a woman has spurned a man's unwanted advances, or some kind of gender-based violence. And there is a bit of a paradox there, do you not think?
I don't see that.
Because women augment their breasts perhaps to make themselves look more attractive sexually.
Look, I don't want to be judgmental about it. My job as a plastic surgeon, as the way we think, is we restore normality. We do not seek or do not like any physical deformity or individual. We transforms life, okay, from a certain state of mind, whether it is deformed. I'm not going into what has caused that, but I have a responsibility or duty to whichever individual come to me with whichever the problem
So
is.
no paradox, you don't see that paradox that I just set out for you about women?
Not really. I know the causes are different, okay, but I don't think they're related directly in that context.
All right, you started your medical training in Karachi, where you're from, and then you moved to the Republic of Ireland for further medical training, and then you went to the United Kingdom and so on. But you've been going back to Pakistan to perform humanitarian operations like cleft palates on children and also women who've been disfigured by acid attacks. You said that you feel that you have a moral obligation to do so. What do you mean?
You may not know that education in Pakistan, the higher education, the medical education, is actually free in the government unit. So I graduated from Dhar Medical College, and you may not believe I ended up paying for my whole graduation 1,000 rupees, which is equivalent to about 80 pounds. So that was a poor country, taxpayers' money, to educate a certain force of the students, whether it's a medical school or engineers, or lawyers or university graduates, completely subsidized. Literally, for zero money, they would get the education. And what we ended up doing, because there were not much prospects, we got the first available flight out, and we actually came out of the country, and we did not look back, frankly speaking. This has happened to lots of us. There were a lot of opportunities for us. Then we got involved training ourselves, making ourselves better than the family's issues.
So you put your own personal ambitions before those of helping your country, and other doctors like you who left countries in the developing world where they benefited from the education, but you wanted to have that life in the West.
But we did not realize it, believe me. It's only at this stage of our life and career, and you look back and reflect and say, hang on, what actually has been happening here?
Are you serious? It wasn't clear to you at an earlier
stage? Not
at
all, because this was an opportunity to get out. It was never a guilt factor. Had there been opportunities for us to stay in the comfort zone and have better opportunities for all of us to train at a higher level and deliver the highest service.
Because you are part of what, of course, is known as the brain drain. Doctors, other medical personnel from Asia, Africa, working in Western nations. And a lot of people have said that this is, frankly, not acceptable. So let me just ask you this. You said on a personal level you feel that you have a moral obligation to give something back to the country that trained you. But should there not be perhaps something a bit more formal than that? Those doctors who don't do what you did, should they be forced to in some way? Should there be some recompense from the countries in which you work in the West to the countries of your origin?
There was a wonderful opportunity in the time of earthquake in Pakistan, 2005.
The Kashmir earthquake.
Kashmir earthquake. As you know, it was the worst disaster in history. But I tell you, at that particular time, the doctors from the West, from Pakistani origin, plus lots of my British colleagues, as well as Indian guys, they volunteered the time to come with us to Pakistan and help. At that point, and I tell you, I think that feeling became very acute that, you know, we're living in a comfort situation in the West, and this is a country which actually brought us up, and we have no moral responsibility or a legal responsibility should we not start something. And I think that was a very tipping point, at least for me, that I need to start thinking in terms of going back and start a process.
But it's voluntary, isn't it? I mean, when you look at the study in the British Medical Journal in 2011 saying developing countries are effectively paying to train staff who then support the health services of developed countries. I mean, this is a known fact.
That's true. That's very true.
So rather than having just a voluntary activity such as yours, do you think there should be something more formal, that you do have some financial compensation even for doctors like you who've left their countries?
I agree, fully agree. In fact, we are working on that, but hopefully, collectively, we could have a comprehensive way of giving it back, whether it will come into a legal terminology or we'll have an, in terms of cash paying back to the society, which actually gave us, as an investment of my own poor society into me, what would be the dividends for the society?
Right.
And it's a very important question, I agree.
Okay, in your native Pakistan, the Acid Survivors Foundation says there are about 150 cases of women who've been attacked with acid, sulfuric acid and that kind of other corrosive substances. And of course it doesn't just go on in Pakistan, it's in South Asia, also in Cambodia, even incidents in Latin America, and indeed here in the United Kingdom. But you were involved in an Oscar-winning documentary last year, Saving Face, which followed your humanitarian operations, in particular looking at these two young women, Roxana and Zakia. And we see you very visibly moved when you are talking to them and treating them. What did you find so moving about their cases?
Well, I tell you honestly, I have been going to Pakistan every few months, and I've been involved, like I said, in different parts of surgery. And I knew we got serious problems in that country. It's not a perfect society. We have limitation. But this aspect of my society, I was not aware of. And with this gruesome activity, and when
You were not aware of?
I was not.
You did not know about acid attacks?
Honest to God.
When did you find out?
It's very interesting. You know, I got involved looking after Katie Piper here in 2008.
She was the young model in 2008.
That's right.
British blonde young lady.
And in my whole
who was,
career,
I should just say, who was her jealous ex-boyfriend arranged
that's
for
right,
a cup of
that's
acid
right.
to be thrown
And this is happening in London
her face. Yeah.
in the 31st of March in 2008. In all my career in the previous 20 years in being plastic surgery, this was the worst scene I have come across.
So you didn't know until you treated the young British model Katie Piper in 2008 that in your own native Pakistan, women like this were being attacked?
Absolutely,
You had not a
honestly.
clue.
I mean, I feel very silly about it.
Your wife is a consultant gynecologist,
That's
a doctor
right,
here,
yeah.
so even she didn't know when you go back and visit family members and so
No,
on?
this
Don't read the
never came
newspapers?
across, because honestly,
Really?
this was never on as an issue. It was only after a few months later, I was talking to one of my old bosses. I said, listen, I have worked on one of this lady, and I've got some very encouraging results, you know, on this patient.
So I'll ask you about Roxana and Zakir in a second, but just to say, do you think the fact that even somebody like you, who maintains their links with Pakistan, your wife, as I said, is a doctor, even you were not aware that this kind of thing went on?
And I only learned about it towards the later part of 2008, when I met Musarat, who was running a duplex smile project. And
Heard about your work with Katie Piper?
she had heard about it, and then I said, listen, can I see what kind of cases you have?
So it's brushed under the carpet. It was brushed under the carpet.
Well, she was running it. She was running an NGO in Pakistan, bringing it awareness, and on a small basis. I think she was working very hard for that. But again, it was something that was under the carpet.
Okay, so what did you... Because Zakir, in the film Saving Face, 39 years of age, attacked by her in-laws, terribly disfigured, and the sad thing was that she could not find any way of supporting herself and actually had to go back and live with the very people who had carried out this horrible attack on her.
That was Roxana, the other girl.
Roxana, yeah.
That's a tragedy. That is something... I'm not surprised, I was shocked. I know, like I said, you know, I'm aware of certain aspects of the society, but the society can be so apathetic, or they show some apathy to such patients or such people. I was not aware of it till she came in and told me.
What is it like when you see somebody in that kind of situation, a young, attractive woman who has been so horribly disfigured like this?
I'm just beginning to learn this aspect of our lives, of society, to be honest, which I was never involved or aware of it, that why men does it, or why, in fact, it was thrown into men as well. And I just learned the different causes, believe me.
What are the... I mean, sorry, just tell us first of all what it's like when you yourself... I mean, you're the father of two daughters.
I've got two daughters
and a son. So, I mean, one of them is training to be a doctor. So when you see these young women in this kind of situation, how does, as a father, as a doctor, does it make you feel?
It breaks my heart. It just breaks in us heart that men can be so low to actually act on. It is an extreme form of, in my opinion, the gender violence. It starts with the domestic violence, then you start raising your arms, and then you say, this woman is still not listening to me, then I have to deface her. Deface her to achieve what I still cannot understand, cannot get to their heads so far.
And these women are psychologically scarred? Obviously.
If you're physically not restored, it's very difficult to heal deep down. As much people say the beauty is deep, you know, it's not skin deep, but it is. This is, if you take the face away of somewhere, because it's your portal of communication, and they're all young women essentially, you have almost, they're walking dead. And that, I'm trying to do, again, like I said, I was not trying to be angry, I was trying to compartmentalize my brain. I said, listen, my job right now is whatever has happened. What can I do to physically restore the damages? So I conscientiously concentrated the aspect which I knew better, And there are other people who are looking into the causes of it.
I was going to ask you this, because you have said, and you've just said it now, all I can do is use my skills to patch people up and give them a better face. Is that really all you can do, Dr. Jawad?
Well, I managed to speak to them because I could speak to their language. I could understand, and I could encourage them. I was involved with Katie, encouraging her to come and tell her story because I felt this was very therapeutic for her, and if by doing so, it should save a lot of other people, and this is how it happened. And similarly, when we got involved with these patients, when we convinced them that it's actually not a bad idea if you go, be brave enough. So the real heroes were these ladies who actually came out and told their stories, that maybe they can save a lot more faces, maybe they could save a lot more lives.
By coming out and speaking and saying what? I mean, what did you discuss
tell
with
them?
them?
This is what men has been doing. You know, we've been protecting men in our society unnecessarily. Men are the weaker sex, and we are not looking after women. Again, it's against religion. Let me just say to you, for me, the reason it was very shocking is that my religion, Islam, came to liberate women. This is my understanding, 1400 years ago, and has given the first equal rights to mother children. In fact, in my religion, mother is a primary source, and then you see, your Jannat lies under. So you are supposed to protect your women, whether it's your wife, your daughter, your women, essentially. And where this behavior comes from, I could not figure it out, because I said, you're a deeply religious country.
But should you not find out? So, I mean, I say to you, when you just said, well, I try and patch people up and so on, but actually, Dr. Jawad, you have got a very high public profile. You were the subject of this Oscar-winning documentary. You're here speaking on television. You can be more than a doctor. You can raise awareness of this terrible disaster that befalls women, not only in Pakistan but all over the world. You can go beyond being a doctor. If you look at your fellow countrywoman, Malala Yousafzai, she's not just a young pupil anymore. She's now an activist, a campaigner for girls' education all over the world. So my question to you is this, do you just remain a plastic surgeon, so you just perform these operations, or do you, Mohammad Ali Jawad, go further and try to say, I actually am going to start some kind of campaign to bring in the right laws, make sure that they are implemented so this kind of violence against women is no longer tolerated for whatever reason in whatever society?
Well, I must share with you, I know you're trying to challenge me to get into a public life, which I will probably in the future, I don't know. We managed to change the law. That's the first time. And you will be very pleased to know that, Zakia's guy who actually threw that got the 2 life sentences during this process as well. So we set the ball rolling, at least in that part of the world.
A new law came in Pakistan,
and we
which gives you many years in prison.
Well. So we're getting involved in India as well. I think we are learning for it. And of course, this campaign is much bigger than individual. It's a much bigger... It's a women issue, is an opportunity issue, is giving them empowerment and raising their profile. And I, as a simple guy, I'm trying how best I can use whatever I have to actually help these women.
You say it's a women's issue, and indeed you've got one female Pakistani MP, Madhvi Memon, who helped get the law passed that you talk about, which gives heavier prison sentences for acid attackers. But she says there's a political will, lack of political will to implement the law. She says it's very difficult to get the police to cooperate with the women because they are under no pressure to do so. You mentioned India. We see similar problems there, gender-based violence against women, with that terrible rape case that everybody knows about, and the 23-year-old girl, young woman. You don't have enough women in the police forces and so on. So it's not just the women you have to get to speak out. You've got to talk to the men as well. Are you talking to those men in power as a male yourself?
I am, and in fact, you'll be pleased to know this is a new campaign we're starting. The campaign is to educate. That country is very much influenced by the mullahs and the Maulvis. So we are educating the mullahs and imams in the rural part that there's a set verses in Quran and Sharia about the role of women and the respect of women in the society. And we're trying to encourage them that they must spread it out. First, they need to be educated, because these men, they're not very educated as well in that part of the world. By the way, World Bank has also reported that 44% of the children in Pakistan have a stunted growth. So we got a problem. it.
So you see lack of poverty, lack of
Combination,
literacy.
combined. And then you've got a very negative influence of these religious figures as well. Are we trying to convince them that they could actually become a force of good?
Do you think they're listening? I mean, you started doing this.
It's a hard...
I mean, how do you do it? Do you go around in these rural areas,
No,
talk to people?
I don't, but we have other group of people who actually have taken upon themselves that this is a very good way to actually approach and spread the word and look after. I mean, it's like a mindset needs to be changed, which has been there for years. It's not going to change overnight. It's a tough job. It's a tough job to transform a society. Look, evolution, I mean, I benefit from living in an open society in Britain and in the West, and we fought for the rights, etc. Okay? The men encourage women as well. In the beginning, they discouraged them, and the democratic process as well, etc. We are in a different type of war zones at the moment. I think we're fighting with the conflicts going on in our life, etc. I think the damaging part, in my opinion, in Pakistan, what happened is about the Ziaul-Haq, when the Hudud ordinance came, which legally reduced the right of a woman.
You're talking about the former President Ziaul-Haq,
yeah,
the military
in 78,
ruler.
79, 80, I can't remember exactly. The whole generation, they started treating women as a second-class, cattle inferior group. And I think it's a behavioral, because that was never the case before.
So that's how you see, that's the root cause of the problem which gives rise to this kind of violence against women. I
personally think it went unchecked because women became second class. I mean, somebody's son has been killed in front of that lady, her witness will not be accepted in the law.
But how do you said there are people who go out and about, these people in the rural areas, to both get the women to speak out when this kind of violence is perpetrated against them, as well as trying to get a change in the mindsets. But it is difficult. I mean, I should just remind you of, in your own film, Saving Face, there was Naila Farhat, a 22-year-old Pakistani woman who lost one eye in an acid attack. And when the film was shown in Pakistan, she was very, very worried. She says, this is disrespect to my family, and they will make an issue of it. We may now be in more danger, and we're scared of that. We don't want to show our faces to the world. So, I mean, did that worry you, actually, then? Yes, in some cases, it may actually be the fact that these women think the time's not right to speak out publicly.
It's a difficult one. I agree. It's a difficult one. I think everybody took a chance. We became very unpopular as well, that why did you show this aspect of the society? But this was an important aspect of the society as far as we are concerned. And I think these filmmakers were very brave people, and these women who came forward to tell the story were very brave. I'm sure you're scared in a sense that you're trying to shake the system up, and some people will be a little upset and will threaten you. And I'm sure these women felt threatened. It's a very patriarchal society. But something has to give, and it has to change. And the one thing which I'm trying to encourage is to men to come forward to denounce this activity. Mm-hmm. In what happened in Bangladesh, they brought a huge group of men, 10,000 people came out, denounced this violence, and now in last 5 years they have brought the incidence down by 50%. My
final question to you is this. Dr Mohammad Jawad, renowned plastic surgeon for all the reconstructive work you do, do you believe that now your high profile has raised awareness of acid burn victims to the extent that we are now seeing real efforts to bring about change and action that will not only reduce but eliminate such acts of violence? Yes, and I'm hoping that if we can reduce this incidence by 50% in 5 years' time, by all this activity which is happening right now, I think it's a job well done to begin with. It is becoming of that level now, yes. Dr Mohammad Ali Jawad, thank you very much indeed for coming on HARDtalk. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.